in the afternoon, and it's a Sunday. And you were surprising me by telling me your dad was a graduate, one of the few graduates of NYU. And you were telling me when he was born. And when was he born?
1897.
1897. 1897.
Brooklyn, New York.
Before the turn of the century, just at the end of Reconstruction. Just before...
My mother was born in 1896.
1896.
My great-grandmother, whom I have a picture of here, in here, was free.
What's the origin of that?
She was born in 1844, and she died in 1934, just before I was 4 years old. I remember her. And she was a free woman. She was not born a slave. I have the record.
Where was she born at?
North Carolina. My grandfather was born on the Cherokee Reservation. His father was on the Andrew Jackson Long March from Florida to
The Trail of Tears.
Trail of Tears.
Right.
And he escaped. He escaped. The story goes, naturally I wasn't there so I can't verify, but I was always told that somewhere along the Trail of Tears he escaped and found his way back and ended up in the Cherokee Reservation and hid out and finally had his family there, and that's where my grandfather was born.
What was your relationship like with your father?
Oh, he was a father that worked, and there were 6 children.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were 6 children. I was the 5th, and there's a picture of me there when I'm 8 years old. I've had it, but I didn't know I had it.
And it sounds very middle class.
Oh, we were.
You landed.
For black people, we were definitely middle class. Not only middle class, but reasonably educated. Every member of my family had, Cynthia didn't graduate college, but every other member did.
So it's no surprise that you were one of the first to be chosen to work in
This film is distributed for showing to the United States Armed Forces across the nation and around the world by the Joseph Schlitz Brewing Company, brewers of the beer that made Milwaukee famous.
Oh,
you make it sound as if it was an accident. You went down to the Urban League office, and that was the story you always told me.
yeah.
And
They suggested I go to Schlitz because they had been, the Urban League had been recruited by Schlitz. They wanted to have a black. They had just opened, see, Schlitz was the biggest brewery in Milwaukee and at that time the largest beer brewery in the country. And they opened this plant in Brooklyn in 1950, and they became pretty operative, and they were looking for a black because they didn't have one black working there, not one female or male.
They had just hired the first black in Milwaukee in 1948, and so this plant opened in 50. And then you started working there in 52, I think.
Yeah, in fact, the strange thing is, they called me to work, and graduation was then, so naturally I didn't go to graduation because I was the only, I didn't want to jeopardize the job. And then Brooklyn, several years later, had a big fire, and all the records were destroyed in the library. And you can always check that, because the Brooklyn lost half of its records in that big fire they had.
Well, how was
I
it?
was in a family where you were taught to do the right thing. And my father was reasonably strict. I got spankings with a belt, not
ironing
with
cord.
a belt.
Uh-huh.
And the last time he went to strike me with a belt, I put my hand up and caught his arm, and he couldn't move it. So he said, well, that's the end of that.
How old were you?
I think I was 13 or 14,
Okay.
something like that. But look, I was the fighter of my class, of my age group. In fact, I had 2 fights that I remember very clearly where I knocked the young man out. So when I first went to work for Schlitz, unless you want to know more about my family, because my sister Lenore was the first member of the family to graduate from Brooklyn College. Billy went to the service. Bobby went to the service. Of course, it was in the 1940s.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy came out and went to the police department and ended up as a sergeant with the New York Police Department. And Bobby went into the priesthood to become a priest, and he ended up just one level below bishop. I don't know the name of it, but we have a picture of him in here also. And my sister Lenore became a teacher, and she started teaching at PS 35, which is the school we all went to in Brooklyn. It became junior high school 35. My brother Ronnie got his PhD in music and became a professional musician. And I have pictures of him in here also.
Who was the oldest?
Lenore.
Where were you in the pecking order? The baby?
I'm the 5th. No, Ronnie was the baby.
Okay.
6. He was the 6th.
Okay.
He was born in 33. I was born in 30. Cynthia was born in 27. Bobby was born in 25. Billy was born in 24. And Lenore was...
Is that the most?
Washington Jones.
Oh,
yeah.
that's Washington Jones is on your
Martha.
father's side.
Yeah, Martha Jones. You see, and they were all mulattoes.
Going back, those records go back to her.
Well, this is
Is that
1860.
Washington Jones was the husband of Cynthia Locklear, right? Yeah, there's Cynthia.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the Saponi Indian. And Washington Jones, apparently, his ancestry were slaves.
But he's identified as a mulatto. They were all identified as mulatto.
And we believe that he came from the Wiley Jones plantation, but we can't prove it.
That's the one that burned down
Yeah,
Mhm.
the records.
in
were-
North Carolina. Okay. They're
But
gone.
Wiley Jones was huge. I mean, there were a lot of
Slaves on that.
Yeah, a
that
lot
ground.
of slaves, and that's it. Since it was in the same.
Columbia Academy. Oh, this is when I stopped the riot at Colgate University.
They wrote you up.
Huh?
They wrote you up. You got some
Yeah.
newspaper coverage.
Yep.
I was with Levitt then.
Ray J was in school.
Yes.
Ray J went to Colgate. This is when I was coming out of the town hall getting my certificates to build my first development in Hempstead. And these are letters from Colgate, the president's office. Your actions this past weekend were unusually creative and invaluable. These are letters regarding how I stopped the stuff at Colgate.
How'd you do that?
Just went there and and that's another story.
I'm hearing the story. I want to hear him.
I was driving home from Willingboro, New Jersey, one of the centers that I was the general manager for Levitt and Sons.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard that the blacks had taken over a building at Colgate because of the actions that had been taken against them, and they were rebelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, oh shit, my son's there. I'm gonna go up there. So instead of going home, I drove from Willingboro, New Jersey to Colgate, which was upper New York State.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you say they were about to call the National Guard that you heard on them?
Yeah, well, that was when I got to the president's house.
Oh, okay.
What year was that?
I just showed it to you, and
Well, I only mention that because I remember being in law school at University of Chicago in 1969, and some guards had shot some kids on Kent State's campus, and it was like, am I dreaming? And then they I think it was Jackson State. They shot some black kids. I remember we shut down the University of Chicago Library just because I thought all of these kids that were there, 1901, that was the same year.
Yeah, that's why he was so
worried. There was a lot of reaction.
Then that was the source of danger.
Yeah.
That you saw.
So
for the most part, though, I remember with most of the students at the school, it was business as usual. No one was disturbed.
No one was what?
Disturbed by soldiers shooting students
it was
on the campus.
It was normalized.
I mean, it was. I just blew my mind. I couldn't study.
Yeah, but it was a different time. I mean, 1969 was 60 years ago.
But it was Vietnam. It was almost as if it was an extension of the hegemony that we were perpetrating in Vietnam, that we were willing also to kill our own students who were protesting. I mean, what kind of government are we sponsoring here? I mean, we have a similar situation going on right now in Israel. It's amazing. But You saw a need and you jumped in.
Yeah, I got letters here from the county council of Howard County regarding it.
Howard
I
County.
got letters from
You're mixing up
Colgate
your-
University, the president's office congratulating me. And I got a letter from the Board of Trustees congratulating me for the actions taken.
Mm-hmm.
And that this was one of my developments I had, one of my early developments. I had my father, my mother, and my sister, and I'm there groundbreaking.
Impressive. Impressive.
What he did for Colgate, for the students at Colgate, he was able to negotiate a student union for the black students to occupy, and the president, if I remember correctly, agreed to spend $120,000 or something like that to rehab a building.
That would have served in that function.
Yeah, but $120,000.
Had no money. Hey, no money.
No money today, but in those days,
That was a lot of money?
it was enough to rehab the building. At any rate, this was one of my first development commitments from a president of a bank, Jamaica Savings Bank. Picture of me watching concrete go in, reading an elevation.
Did you actually know how to do that?
Yeah, that's all that is reading an elevation. And this is Ray J. He came out during one time and wanted to look through the telescope, and I let him look through the telescope. That was my assistant, Louise Pearson. This was all just construction developments that I built. I can tell you, Robert, I built, I would venture to say, about, well over 800 houses and developments.
Over your entire career?
Yeah.
Beginning at Levitt and on your own?
Yeah, these
Okay.
are all some of the pictures of construction. Units under construction.
Did you maintain these records as you went along? Did you have that sense of your own personal history, or was there a time when you started to?
I wanted to have stuff that I could show. Oh, here's the $2 bill that I had.
That's good luck, supposedly.
No, this one is real. This is fake, but this one is real. So, in order to go through further, we'd have to go downstairs, but I gather you're ready to go now.
I think we've covered enough ground for me to see what I've got. I can only shoot from the hip when I talk to you. The first time I was astounded by your level of aggression was in a meeting at the law firm I was an associate with, called Ross, Hardy's, O'Keefe,
Yeah, and
Babcock and
I had
Parsons.
come in to make a presentation to the big boss.
The
And you were standing by the window. I remember it clearly.
and it shocked me. Richard Babcock was the managing partner,
Mm-hmm.
and he was responsible for me
Babby.
being at the firm, and he was a giant in land use planning in the United States. I mean, Mount Laurel is a land use decision that's germane to here in Maryland that changed how communities can plan their development, and the relationships of him to you is so fundamental to my understanding of power. He was the power guy, but you overpowered him intellectually with why the development choices you were making made more financial sense. He was a planner. You were a business developer, and you contradicted it, and it blew him away.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
And I remember reacting. You weren't afraid. My hair, my neck went up. I said, Jesus Christ, what did he do?
Who's this black guy?
Well, it's a funny thing. In the retrospective to that, I understood you both better as a result of that. And of course, the next episode is Ann Arbor. And Ann Arbor was a whole different face. Give me some background on how you got to Ann Arbor.
Well, now we're jumping all the way to Levitt and Sons. And I was the first black.
Well, what was the transition between Schlitz and Levitt?
There was no, well, at Schlitz, I had bought a house. I had been there about 8 years. I was now a platform supervisor. And if I go into the story of Levitt, I'm sorry, of Schlitz,
Mm-hmm.
all the women there were looking to deal with me. Because, it was, the whole place was white. And here's this reasonably attractive black man whom they were looking for to hire.
Uh-huh.
And they hired me.
Uh-huh.
And there must have been 15, 20 girls that, wanted to know who I was and
Right.
this, that, and the other.
Sure.
But on the platform, when I first went there, I would venture to say for the first 12, 18 months, there was so much jealousy by the white platform workers and the drivers. They used to, as soon as they saw me, they'd start limping along and yells of Mr. Boss Man, what can I do, Mr. Boss Man? And I had to go through that shit. But I figured it's better to get my paycheck than to listen to that.
Uh-huh. Or to challenge that.
There was no challenge that I could put forth.
Right. Right. Uh-huh.
But, I was, you started to express yourself about my childhood. And I was brought up in a family where we were taught not to be embarrassed by who we were.
Mm-hmm.
Always chin up.
Mm-hmm.
That was my father's expression. Chin up
Mm-hmm.
whenever we went someplace. My mother used to take me well, I won't say used to, but I remember one time she had taken me just before Christmas shopping, and she told me, she would always tell me, no matter where we were, but when we went into a department store, put your hands in your pockets, and I'm 5, 6, 7 years old, put your hands in your pockets and don't take them out, because in a department store they were looking for little black kids
To pick up things.
pick up things, you know.
Yeah.
And I just came from a family structure of that. My father was the head of the the Black Postal Union in Brooklyn. And when he died, there must have been 300 cars or more in the trail to the funeral. We had police stopping the traffic on all the way to the Evergreen Cemetery in Brooklyn. But getting back to this other issue, at Schlitz, I got to Schlitz because I had purchased a house and in Queens, and there was a big lot across the street from where I had purchased the house. We had been told by the seller that they were going to start another development there after this development was finished. And lo and behold, about a year and a half after we were there, a big plant started going up. So I looked at Rose, and she looked at me, and I said, well, I'm going to go see if I can find a house in Long Island, Nassau County. I couldn't find a house, but I saw a builder where they were building and black people were buying. And I started going there every morning, and the general contractor came over to me and said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm just trying to watch what's going on. I'm thinking of buying a house, but I want to know how it's built. And I said, I'd love to be able to work part-time for you. And he said, well, I don't have any part-time workers. And I said, well, I'll work for free. I have a job, I'll work for free. And he said, well, I'll think about it, come back tomorrow. And I went back to work, and I asked him if I could go on the second shift, because we changed shifts from AM to PM shifts. And I was granted that, but I had to wait till the end of the month. And I went back the next day to the guy, his name was Smith. And he said, what do you really want? And I said, I want to learn how to build a house. And he said, okay, but I'm not paying you anything. And I said, I told you I'll work for free. And he said, well, start on Monday, come in and we'll see how we'll work this out. So I came in on the next Monday, and his operation started at 7 a.m. and ended at 4, but I had to leave by 3 because I had the second shift. I had to be to work by 5. And so I started working for him first, just carrying lumber, learning this, that, and the other. And to make a long story short, I started, and I worked almost a year for nothing, every day on different jobs, learning the business, how to contract, how to read blueprints, how to negotiate with contractors, etc., etc. And I ended up buying a piece of land and building my first house, 134 Virginia Avenue in Hempstead. And I had enough courage to put a sign in the window just want to read it right. Builder 434, that was my number, I can't remember the whole number. But anyhow, I put the sign in the window, and the people in the meantime around the community have noted that I was the builder, and here's a black guy that's building a house. So, here again, to make a long story short, I ended up getting about 11 contracts by the end of the year, and I started building houses. And
Wait a minute.
I left Schlitz.
Wait a minute. You were building your own house.
Yeah.
You were learning how to build a house by working for free.
Yeah. But I did that for almost a year.
But how
and then
did
I bought a piece of land.
you bought a house? You were building your own house.
And I was building my own house. And
How
I
did
put
you-
a sign in the window. Custom builder, that's what it was. Custom builder 434, and I can't remember the rest of the number.
Wow.
And I started getting
Wow.
calls.
How did you know how to do that?
It's-
What was that leap? That's a hell of a leap.
Well, anyhow, I ended up with about 11 customers by the end of the year, and I was building houses, and at that time I would build a house. Most of the houses I built were, I built and sold for under $100,000.
I want to spend a little time here, because this was incrementally, that was a large leap that you made. Not only did you determine that this was
I
something...
made large leaps all my life.
Well, yeah, but give me the background. What was in your thinking? I mean, when you
It was
when you
not
offered
for
to work
me-
for free,
me.
for example, did you have that in mind to sell?
No, I was negotiating for what I wanted to do.
And so you were learning,
Yeah,
learning how to do it.
I didn't go to learn to be an architect or to be a carpenter or a plumber or anything. But
You learned the various roles in putting a house together.
I was interested in how do you do this? Who do you schedule? How do you do the whole
Sequencing.
process? And that's what this guy taught me.
Had you done anything like this before? Had you been a part of a...
A construction operation?
Yeah.
No, I just wanted, I told you, we had bought a house, and the lot across from us was, the builder that sold us the house told us that he was going to build houses the next spring on this vacant lot. Well, that was a lie. And about June or July of the next year, when we were looking for construction to have begun, in fact, we were asking we were asking neighbors, when's he going to start building? All of a sudden, these big trucks started coming in, and they were and they built this factory. It was like a warehouse factory on this lot, and I had decided, my wife and I decided, that wasn't Gail, that was Rose, that we have to get out of here. So that's when I went to Long Island and started looking around, and I found this construction going on, and I stood outside every morning for about 3 or 4 weeks, and finally the guy came down and asked me, "What do you want? You're here every day." And I said, "I want to learn how to build a house." And his first answer was, "You don't have to learn, I'll build it for you." And I said, "No, I want to learn how to build." And
Where did that come from?
hmm?
Where did that come from? That one,
It's just part of my instinct, part of my life.
was it something? Is there an analogy in your earlier part of your life where you did something similar, just out of?
I just saw, yeah, I started, the largest store in Brooklyn at that time, grocery store chain, was Bohack and Company.
Uh-huh.
And I started working for them when I was 11, delivering orders.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, most people would give me a dime for delivery, but a dime in those days was, we're talking about 1941, you know. And some people would give me a quarter, but, you know, I'd end up with $2 or $3 by the end of the week, and then I bought a cheap wagon. It was a regular wagon that a woman wanted to get rid of, and I said, "I'll give you $1 for the wagon," and she said, "Here's the wagon," and I gave her 4 quarters. And I then hired another little friend of mine to deliver orders because I was getting more business than I could handle. And I gave him the wagon to deliver orders, and I kept delivering orders, and we were both delivering orders. And Saturday was our big day. We never could get them. I mean, we worked until 7, 8 o'clock at night trying to deliver orders on Saturday, and we'd end up making $5 or $6 on a Saturday. So, I mean, that's been part of my nature. I have always been relatively aggressive. And where do you want me to go from here?
Well, I don't want to necessarily tire you out, but I'm getting to a certain. So see, for me, I'm shooting from different angles, and I'm trying to get a sense of the pattern of your life and how you got to where you are now. And you're certainly, I'm learning things about that. But I also want to understand what you want to reflect. Allow me.
What I what? You say it again. I just didn't get the word.
Well, I want to say it in a different way because you didn't get it by that way. You are who you are.
Yeah.
But you are my image of who you are. In addition to being who you are my reflection.
Okay.
Of who you are, because you are my experience.
Okay.
Of who you, which is how I respond to you. It's based on admiration, based on perceived skills, effectiveness of your mind, that you're incisive, you're spiritual, you produce children, you produce assets, and experiences. So all of that has to do with me, but I'm not sure what you want to reflect. In other words, you impact me in certain ways, And the questions I ask are the ways you impact me. But I'm not sure how you want to impact others, the world. In other words, when you do something, you're doing it to learn. You wanted to learn. You brought the wagon. You employed your little friend because business was growing. You learned from the developer. You worked free to learn how to build rather than let him build for you. Those are things I'm learning about your choices that is part of how you got to be who you are. But I don't know what you were trying to say to the world other than something.
I wasn't trying to do anything other than survive. I mean, it was part of my feeling that, you know, you gotta perform. I never felt that you can't perform. You have to perform. And I've always felt that. That's been part of, look, my father, let me just mention about my father. He got married, and evidently, and I don't know the year that he got ill, but he got married, had Lenora and Billy, and then went to the hospital and had his hip operated on. The doctor told him we have to operate on it. Took out several inches of his hip bone, ended up crippled, and went back to work, and then had more children, and because my mother, his wife, only had the 2 children when he had his operation. When I was born, he was still recovering, correct, but he still worked for the post office. So I don't know how he went back and forth to the post office, but I've only known him with he walked with a big limp. Boom, 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 boom. That's how he walked.
But he was a father after he got sick.
He was a father, yes. And
I mean, he created children.
Yes, he created children.
He wasn't a total invalid.
He enjoyed himself as a man. And,
yes.
We were always taught to perform. We were just taught, it was part of us. We had to perform. You can't just do nothing. You have to do something.
In terms of impacts, what story do you want to leave? What do you want to leave behind you? What?
I've left. See, we have to go downstairs.
All right.
And you'll see what I leave.
What's downstairs?
Well, you'll see it. You've been downstairs.
Yeah.
But to give you an example, Daniel was born on the 24th of December, day before Christmas, 1985.
Okay.
He got his first degree. He started college at 11.
Wow.
Started.
Wow.
He got his first degree when he was 15.
Wow.
He would be 16 in December, but graduation...
We need to check the dates.
We will.
Because I'm not sure if it was 15 or 16.
What was the intention? Was that just
No,
the accident?
the intention was to satisfy... Look, he was reading when he went to school, he got in trouble in the first grade because he wanted to
Kindergarten.
read and the teacher wanted to take the book away from him.
He learned to read when he was 3, sitting on the little plastic potty while he was potty training.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out with Goodnight Moon, and he would sit there for an hour. And after that, I had magnetic, capital magnetic letters that I put on the refrigerator. And it was a game where he would put a bunch of letters together and Mommy would try to pronounce it, and then he would laugh and laugh and laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then one day he was looking at the newspaper and he got really mad at me. And he was pointing to letters that he didn't recognize in the newspaper. They were the lowercase letters. And he got really mad. So I bought the lowercase magnetic letters and I paired them up. Capital, lower, capital. And then he was happy. He was like, oh, I get it now, yeah. So then he started to read signs, for sale signs and things, because we go for a walk.
How old was he then?
3, turning 4.
Oh my God!
And he was a late talker. That runs in my family. Some of the men, like my father, was a late talker, and I have a nephew, a cousin who was a late talker. But he really learned to talk, to tell me what he could already read. So we would go for a walk, and he'd point to a sign, I'd have to read it for him, and then he'd know what it was. He never forgot. So he'd know what it was the next time. And he learned to read. And I could tell that he was reading because one day he talked about a vagina. He had read it in an encyclopedia. He was reading the encyclopedia, and I knew for sure that he hadn't heard it anywhere because he was mispronouncing it. So it was hilarious. And then he was also taking music lessons, and he was multitasking. I remember we had this music book. One side was music about a dinosaur and the other was verbiage about the dinosaur. The music was... So he'd be playing the music and reading about the dinosaur at the same time. He probably was 5. But he always liked numbers. He was counting by 13s, probably at 5. He was counting exponentially at 6, 7. I mean, it just... his brain. So we got him tested. We took him to...
Something that's savant.
I think so.
So this is important. Listen to what you're going to say.
When he was 5, we took him to a psychiatrist, whatever they are, psychologist, to get him tested, his IQ test. And it's with children, they'll have him there for an hour or 2 and then have him come back because you don't want to spend 8 hours and you know, he's 5.
Yeah.
So we went back 5 times. She said, I can't find an end, I'm sorry, but I'm going to stop it now. And
She's going to put an end to what?
to his ability to take the test. She said
He was perfect.
She said she put his quantitative IQ at about 176.
Oh my God!
And his verbal in the 150s.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
That's genius level.
it is.
Yeah, well,
Can you pull the
Both of
chair
them.
away from the... Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
You're just pointing. The power of what you're saying
It's
is
me.
like you have to step back.
And then when David was about the same age, we went back to her, and she said, now I know it's genetic because you have two. David had different skills. He didn't read as early. He was typical age when he read, but his mind was, I mean, if I'd read a book to him, we would talk about the plot, and he would rewrite some of the you know, like
Just-
the Lion King, we talk about what would have happened if Scar was a good lion instead of a bad lion. And I mean, he had to tear everything apart. He was very verbal, where Daniel was just never verbal. So David would talk for him. So they had different gifts, and you know, but both of them were musical, and I think that math and music go together.
Is there history in either of your families at that level?
Look,
Not at that level, but everybody on my side of the family, all the men were engineers, and the women, if they worked outside, they were accountants,
I'll
lawyer.
let me mention this. You know, in high school, the students would take an exam in their senior,
The SAT, you know the SAT.
the senior class, and most of them are 17, 18 years old. Well, Daniel was permitted to take it at 10.
No, he was 11 years and 4 months.
Okay, he was 11 years and 4 months. And
He got a perfect math score.
the people, the high school students, many of them came out of the auditorium crying. They were so sorry that they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. He came out laughing.
He said, oh, the math was so easy. He got a perfect math score on the SAT and 500 out of 800 on the verbal, which gave him a combined score of 1,300, which was already scholarship level at UMBC.
At what age?
11 years and
11.
4 months.
That's when he started
And
college.
then when he was 12, he took the SAT 2 just in math and got a perfect score on that. So I went to Johns Hopkins to see what do I do with this kid, and they said take him to UMBC because Dr. Grabowski was a young scholar and he might be interested in allowing Daniel to study there. So I did, and the admissions counselor said, well, so far we only have Mom's word for this and the SAT. She said, I believe you, but I'd like you to take a year and you could do correspondence courses, and then I can get another opinion from a teacher. So that year, I enrolled him in Indiana University correspondence courses, and he also took a physics course, the beginning physics course at UMBC. He got the highest score in the class. In fact, it was funny because I didn't work at UMBC then. And he woke up on the final exam day and said, Mom, I think it started already. I didn't realize that exams start the hour before the normal class time. So I rushed him there. He had only 1 hour left to take a 2-hour exam, and he got a perfect score. So
He's 11 now.
yeah, he
At
was.
the university.
That was the fall semester when he was still 11. He turned 12 in December, and then the next semester, the spring semester, he took 17 credits and aced them all. And I would be a secretary. I never went to class with him. I never did his homework for him. I did have to type lab reports because I would stay up with him while he worked, and then I would get a call, Mom, I left my notebook in the lab and it's locked. What do I do? Those kinds of things I helped him with because, I wanted to keep the stress level down. But he had to be challenged, and we had to find a way to challenge his brain because, as you know, smart kids can get in trouble in smart ways. and we had to keep him occupied.
Or dumplings. Which is
Yeah.
the frustration.
Right, so he got 2 degrees math and physics,
Uh-huh.
and he was magna cum laude. And I want to check the dates. I think he was 16 and 17, but the degrees are down there, and we can check the dates.
And David started at 12.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what do you do with kids that are in college at 11 and 12 years old?
What do you do?
You start Columbia Academy.
Is that what you did?
Yeah, that's what
Well,
we did.
you've seen Columbia Academy, haven't you?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And you know, we started that.
When David was 2 and Daniel was in 1st grade, so we made it from 2 to 1st grade.
You've been going now for an hour. Let me know. What's the timing? I don't want to tax yours.
We haven't even begun.
I
to
know,
look at
I
the
know.
book.
Maybe we should just take an opportunity here to figure out timings and blocks of time, because I don't want to destroy your routine or challenge you physically. I plan to come, and this is the first priority. So we're here today. We're here tomorrow. We're here Tuesday.
Okay, now tomorrow I work from home.
Okay.
So I will be here, but I'll be working.
You'll be working tomorrow.
So you will have to just,
One-on-one.
yeah. And then Tuesday I go into work.
What time are you leaving?
I leave about 7. Normally, when I work in the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and normally Ray Jr. will come about 9 o'clock and spend about 5 hours with Ray.
On Tuesday.
On Tuesday and Thursday when I'm not here.
Okay.
And then like I say, I work from home Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that he doesn't need hand-holding, but
Okay.
if there's any need. So
Uh-huh.
if you're going to be here on Tuesday, we can let Ray Jr. know. He can either come and listen, or he generally, if I'm home, he won't come over.
Well, let me talk to my group and see what their druthers are. Quite frankly, we've got great weather. I did not expect.
It's cold out, but
Well, it's cold.
but
It's
it's
easy.
sunny.
I thought it was going to be raining.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I mean, I thought the whole thing was going to rain. We were going to go to the Francine has a friend of hers has a horse ranch in Virginia, and we were going to go through there, and then come on in from there. And she said, "No, don't come. It's pouring here." And I think, "Oh God, we're going to have the rain." But it's turned out perfectly well.
Yeah, let's see what the weather's supposed to be. So anyway, that's
That's the general schedule. Okay.
Well, I want
it's
to.
supposed to be sunny the rest of the week here.
You want to cover some genealogy ground and
Yeah, I
historical
want to
ground.
show you this so that you have an idea of what you want to go through.
Okay. Go ahead.
Because you know what you want to go through. I have no idea.
You are who I want to go through. So you got your head. Do whatever you what your priorities are. My priorities.
Well, why don't you cut this off and we'll go through some of this and then you
But
can pick up.
I wanted to get it on tape too. If you don't mind,
I don't mind, but
because mostly
it's see,
Mostly-
if
mostly
you
I-
want to know about me, a lot of it will show up in
in your genealogy,
Yeah.
your memorabilia right there.
because that helps me remember things.
You prepared all of that.
Oh, this is
Why did you do that? When did you do that? Have you been doing that all your life?
Over the years, I've had this.
He researched his genealogy. In fact, he was doing that when we first met. He was going to archives and checking, learning about his mother's side. Mother's side of the family was what he was working on when we first met. And then he was also working on his father's side, but finding it more difficult because there was slavery on his father's side, and the Wiley plantation in North Carolina burned with records, and he got to that point and couldn't go further. Other than the fact that you had what, your great-grandmother was a Saponi Indian in North Carolina?
No, Cherokee.
No, that was your mother's side of the family.
Yeah.
Your father's side, she was a Saponi Cynthia Locklear was your great-grandmother?
Either the great or the great-great, you know.
And her husband.
See, I wasn't able to research my father as easily as I could my mother, because there definitely was slavery on his side, and the records just weren't as clear.
I'm going to put the cheese in the refrigerator.
Good.
On my mother's side, there wasn't as much slavery that I could pick up, and like she said, I had truthfully, until she mentioned it, I had forgotten about the Levi's. But you know, yeah. Look, man, I'm almost 94 years old. I don't remember as much as I used.
Well, quite frankly, you remember a lot more than I'd already given you credit for. I've watched your energy ebb and flow over the last couple of years. But now that I had a chance to really just have an extended conversation with you, your energy is slowed down, but the clarity of your mind is still there.
Yeah, I'm not. I haven't gone into
Dementia or the beginning of senility.
I haven't gone into dementia. I can't remember a lot of things like dementia. I couldn't remember the word.
Well, I can't remember a lot of things.
Okay.
Me either. Me either. I suspect that this idea of memory is affected by all the toys we now have. Google, phones. We have a computer. We have an Encyclopedia Britannica. All the volumes in our phone.
In your phone.
In your phone.
Yeah. Well, it's
If that doesn't affect. If that somehow doesn't affect your memory, I don't know what is.
Come on, let me show you this.
What do you got?
This is when I lost my last tennis double. That's Fred Smith. Fred Smith is about 30 years younger than me.
Where was that, in Ann Arbor?
Yeah, no, that was here.
Okay, what year was that?
What's it say?
It says 1985.
I was 55, he was about 25.
Magnificent. Magnificent. What else is there? That's your daughter.
This is Rhonda.
That's her son.
Yeah, that's me.
And that's you guys.
Yeah. This is my great-great-grandfather.
Great-great-grandfather.
Yes.
What's his name?
He was born in 1812 or 1817.
Where'd you get the picture?
Ebenezer Hall. You can look him up he was a big-time preacher. Had congregations in several states.
Huh.
This is his wife. This is my mother.
Very
when
attractive.
she was, well, there's a better picture downstairs of the same thing when she was inaugurated into the Cherokee Nation. Her father took her down to the nation. This is my mother when she was, I think that's when she graduated high school. This is my grandmother, my mother's mother. And you can see she was 16 at the time she married him. That's my grandfather. He's the one that was the Cherokee.
With a dapper outfit on, including the hat.
Oh yeah, he did something for one of the big department stores.
In New York.
Yeah,
And who's that?
that's part of the Cherokee people.
But not necessarily in your bloodline.
Oh yeah, everything is in my bloodline.
Okay.
This is
Rose, Robert's younger sister.
yeah, and that was taken on the reservation.
Wow.
This
Who's
is that's the same guy, Robert Walker.
He's with all these other white guys. What's he doing there?
He was part of the group.
Where?
He wasn't considered black.
What was the group?
I don't know the name of the group. I mean, it was some kind of a group that,
Fishing club.
yeah.
The Schwerman's Fishing Club. Wow.
That's my father.
Strong chin.
Huh?
Strong chin.
Yeah.
89.
This is my grandfather,
His father.
His father. This is my grandmother. That's when she was young, and that's when she was old.
Very attractive. Great smile.
This is some recall. Oh, this is her mother. This is the one that came up from the South. That's the one that was born in 1844.
Okay. Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Yep.
Brooklyn.
That's my father when my grandfather, his father, took him to, he evidently worked for a country club, and he took him there during the summer to be in the...
That's William in 1905. And this is 1908, William.
And that's my sister Lenora.
Looks like your mama. That's Lenora.
Yeah.
That's the one I knew. The one that moved down south. Where did she move to?
She moved down south, yeah. And Bobby moved down south also. They were both in Florida.
That's her.
That's her.
Very attractive.
And that's Billy.
Now this one,
He's the oldest boy, Billy Wilbur.
and what was his profession?
He was a policeman, but he became a sergeant, and then he became the head of a department
In Brooklyn.
I think he, as head of the department, it was in Connecticut.
Okay.
This is my brother Bobby. He was just under Bishop. and his story, he was up for bishop, and his story was there were a couple of people that just didn't like him and wouldn't vote for him. That's him blessing my grandmother, my father's mother. That's Cynthia, my sister Cynthia.
Looks like your daughter. Well, your daughter looks like her.
And that's my youngest brother, Ronald.
A PhD.
But yeah, he died. Well, they're all dead now except me. But he was a great musician, traveled all over the world.
Piano was his.
Piano and singing. Great baritone voice.
What kind of music did he sing?
Classic, not you know.
Gershwin? Cole Porter?
Yeah, that type of song.
Yeah.
But with a great deal of oomph.
Yeah, yeah. Cynthia, and these are.
That's my father and my mother and Lenora.
Very distinguished.
This is, I think, is this the picture with me? Yeah, that's me when I was drafted. I was drafted erroneously. There was another Raymond Chapman that was a draft dodger. And
They were going to get him, huh? And they got you instead.
They got me instead. And it took me 4 months to get out.
They thought they had him, and they had you.
They took me 4 months to get out, and when I...
Because you had an exemption.
When the captain called me into his office, he said, well, you can go to OCS or you can get discharged. And I said, discharged, sir.
Because you had the background and the training to be an officer.
I most likely would have ended up in Korea.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you didn't want to do that.
didn't want to do that.
Here's Rose,
Yep.
and that's Robert, and that's your aunt.
Let me see the picture. I can't see it. Yeah, that's my Aunt Louise. That's my grandfather, the Cherokee.
Okay. And these are more of the
Yeah, this
pictures
is the old family.
Mm-hmm.
That's Rose.
It's your son,
Yeah,
Richard.
he's dead. He just died.
Ricky.
Yep. Couldn't adjust.
What happened to Ricky?
He got into drugs, just like Roland.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trying to hang out with the boys. Take this, try this, you know, and all you gotta do is try it 1 or 2 times. They
He's
got
up.
you.
And you got it.
And I think that's what happened to both of them.
What do you think about that?
Well, it cost their life and it cost sorrow within the family. I never expected it.
What was it? Was it situational? Was it a lifestyle? Was it? Have you done any?
Well, most likely, I accept some of the burden because I was always trying to do better, and I moved. Remember my house in Hempstead? Not in Hempstead.
Ann Arbor.
In Ann Arbor.
I
yeah.
do remember. Yeah.
Okay. We were the only black family there.
Uh huh.
believe it or not, 2 weeks to get to him because I still had these centers going, and I was flying from here to Catania, Puerto Rico, and from Puerto Rico
By the
to
way,
Bel
his
Air.
wife didn't like that,
and-
and they ended up getting
And
divorced
so-
because that was not good for. And this
Yeah,
is
right.
part of the conversation he had with Ray Jr. when he was here
Oh,
on
that he didn't know,
Sunday,
yeah.
And
because
see,
he had to talk
very-
about his relationship with his
Yeah.
wife,
People look at
Ray's
me.
mother.
People look at me and they don't have any idea of the magnitude of business that I've been involved in. I've been involved in millions of dollars of operation, and I have been a millionaire a couple of times in my life. But at any rate, the president of Lebanon Sons greeted me. I went. It took me 2 weeks to get there, and he said, bottom line, we only met for about 10 or 15 minutes, but he said, we're going to come up with some other opportunities for you. And I'm here. I am, and I remember so clearly. I'm saying to myself, God damn, here I am talking to the president of Levitt & Sons. A few years ago, I couldn't even buy a house from Levitt & Sons. And he's telling me we're going to have more opportunities. I'm already in my mind, I'm already a big shot. I mean, I call up for a flight plane. I don't pay for anything,
You're doing a job, are you getting paid for it?
That I'm getting paid for, yeah.
How old are you?
Let's see, in 1966
Oh,
and
you were
7,
36.
in 1969, I was 39 years old.
Yeah.
So how much of
and
this,
I
when you're
was-
doing these
okay,
things, and
I
especially
get
at the university, to what extent was it, this is my career and I'm, it's good for me, and to what extent were you making
No,
history?
I can respond to you.
Well, yeah.
without even hearing it.
I'm a born black man. I'm on the cutting edge of what is going on in this nation. I'm the first. People look at me, and I'll be very truthful, especially. And please understand this. Being a reasonably attractive black man, walking around, meeting people who had never really had conversations with black people. I can tell you right now, as God is my witness, I must have had 100 Levitt females that were after me. God's honest truth.
All right.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, they wanted to know.
I like an alpha.
They wanted to know. And I'm not saying that I performed. I'm just saying that.
But you're not saying that you didn't either, right?
Did you or not?
Very vague.
Yeah, very well.
I'm innocent.
Vague, yeah.
Keep them guessing. Keep them
It's a
guessing.
good, very
I already know. There's nothing I don't
getting-
know, guys.
See, I'm only getting to another point now.
Oh, God.
I'm only getting to another point, and naturally, I can't take this kind of time at the party. I have to put it in. I have to condense it.
And I do
But,
have
I'm
dessert, guys, coming.
This isn't the dessert?
I'm at 2 weeks later.
I made a cheesecake, guys.
Two weeks later, the president calls me back. He tells Janess, call me back. And so John Janess, who was a very nice guy, called me and he said, Mr. Wasserman wants to see you again as soon as you have an opportunity. He didn't tell me the date. He just said, as soon as you have an opportunity, which means call Wasserman's office, make the appointment, etc. So I called. I go up to see Wasserman, and Wasserman was very busy, but he had made time for me. And he said, "Oh, Ray," and he's very excited because he's doing something else. And he says, "Look, we're going to make you a general manager, but you have to go to the Midwest. We want you to we want you to find a Midwest location, spend 2 or 3 months with the Chicago operation, find out how they're doing things, spend 2 or 3 months with the Detroit operation, see how they're doing things, and find a city and John Jeunesse will take care of whatever it is you need to set up and build." I was going to become a general manager,
Wow.
and he said, "Do you have any questions about it? See John." I walked out of the office. I mean, I'm dizzy. I am literally dizzy. And I went out and I walked to my car. And I sat down in my car and I burst into tears.
Aww, sweetheart.
I could not, I had to come to grips
Sweetheart.
with what had just happened. You know, here
I love
again,
you, dear.
look, all of my life,
Yes. How did
all
you-
of my life, blacks have
What's
been
so hard, sweetie?
subjected
Come tell me what's so hard.
to being subservient to. Now, the president of the company is telling me nonchalantly, you're going to become a general manager, go find a city, find a product, and run it. And I'm trying to come to grips with this.
How old are you at this time?
I'm still 39, going on 40.
Very young.
So you're old enough to have experienced
This is
a lot.
1969.
But
I
I
was
will
born in
tell you,
1930.
when he first went there and went to orientation and sitting there, he was in his 30s, and other of the white people were in their early 20s. He was much
That's right.
older, and
all
he
right.
said,
Yeah, I get it.
he already said, "Oh my gosh, look at me. I'm so different than everybody
many ways,
around
yeah.
me." So it sounds young, but other people had a more of a head start on that. Anyway,
So
it's
anyhow,
interesting.
What did crying mean?
I go
what did
to-
crying mean?
I went to
Yeah, I didn't know if it was tears
What
of
did
joy
crying
or-
mean?
or
crying.
What did crying,
Why'd you cry?
bringing to tears, what did that mean
I
to you?
sobbed.
Tears of joy?
I sobbed because
Why?
I sobbed because I was realizing. Look, when I went to Schlitz, I was sent to Schlitz by the Urban League. Now, the Urban League was the black organization whose primary function was to find legitimate employment opportunities for blacks who had something to offer. And as Gail said, I'm a college grad, so and that's in 1952, which is when I grad. So for me, you have to understand. Well, see, you don't, because I didn't tell you this part of the story. When I was seven years old.
Bring up my.
When I was 7 years old, I went to. My father took us. He employed a friend of his who had an automobile, and he drove us down to Lakehurst, New Jersey, which is where
The blimp went to planes.
The dirigible was. We called it
that's
dirigible.
The dirigible.
Hindenburg
Yeah,
thing.
the von Hindenburg. It was von Hindenburg, not the Hindenburg. Von Hindenburg. And on the way there, I was 7. We stopped for gas, and I walked into the little candy store. It wasn't, there was a candy store next to the gas station, and I walked in, and my father had given me 2 cents. That's what the New York Daily News cost. And I went in and I put the 2 cents down on the paper. They had a little place where you put it, and I picked up the paper. And before I could get out of the door, the owner grabbed me and threw the 2 cents away, and grabbed me by my neck and my pants. And he threw me out, and he said, as he's yelling, "We don't sell to niggers." I mean, that's my life.
Yeah.
Those are the things that, and my father couldn't do anything, because if he had attempted to do something, they would have had the police on him. So I have the knees, the scars on my knees right now where I landed, because I landed on my knees.
He threw you out.
Yeah, he threw me out, and I landed on my knees and my hands, and naturally I was bloody and whatnot. As I say, I had the scars on my hands and knees, not on my knees, not on my hands, but on my knees from that experience. But that was the life that we lived. I mean, it was a life of, if you're white, you're all right. If you're black, get back. And that's it.
So my dad is 4 years younger, and he was in a Navy family. He was adopted, and they traveled around. And he said the worst years of his life were the Deep South. And he's told me some of these stories. And he said, I was just a kid, and he was trying to play with friends, different people, colored they call them.
Yeah.
And same thing, he was trying to buy a Coke for a friend or something like that, and he was persecuted, and that's part of why they went north. And I'm not saying, the Deep South was the worst.
I remember,
no doubt, absolutely.
I remember 2 or 3 times a year you'd read about some black guy that had been hung here or hung there. And,
yeah.
I mean, this is
I've
what
never
took
been to
place.
the Deep South to this day. I just don't.
So, at any
Well,
rate,
it's a totally different picture.
at any rate,
Yeah, I think so too. They changed Atlanta, but what else? Can I ask Mike? I had again. Can I? What I had asked you earlier about if you knew that you were kind of making history at the time, or if it was more just.
oh, absolutely. That's what I was
you knew
getting.
It wasn't just
That's what I was getting
experience,
back
it
to
was-
when I started to tell you about the Urban League. See, when I went to the Urban League, the inspector said, "We're sending you to Schlitz. They've never hired a Negro." He said, "Dress well, speak well, and remember you're a representative of the Negro race." Those were the words
There's no pressure.
that
Look at
Like
that.
no pressure.
Yeah.
Get your job and
You're-
remember that
you represent-
out of everybody of the whole
Yeah.
world, you're representing.
Well, he
them.
just asked me if
Yeah.
I knew that
Yeah.
I
They
was.
say
Right.
people don't know it when they're experiencing that.
Shoot.
It's really
Yeah.
historical.
But I was, in my own mind, I had always been a representative, and and that's one of the reasons why part of my father would always say, "Never appear shabby," because you only have one time to make a first impression. You go shabby, the person sees you, you're shabby. You go looking like you mean something, and they're gonna say, the first thing they're gonna say is, "Who's that nigga?" That's what they say. Who's that nigga? And I mean, that's the mindset. You can't take it away, and I'm not gonna say that I blame these people because that's what they were taught. But the fact is, you nor anyone like you was born with hatred. You were taught it. If you have it, if anybody has it, you were taught it. You were born just like these little kids you see here. They're innocent. What do you know? You're born. Period.
Did you
But-
become a general manager at Levitt?
So, yeah, he told me I was going to be a general manager. And so I started, I had to go back naturally to my operations and let them know that they're going to pick it up, and the assistant managers were going to become the managers of each of these, of Willingburn, New Jersey, of Bel Air, Maryland, and Catania, Puerto Rico. I had to go back and tell them, but I couldn't just go back and tell them once. I had to sort of go back, and in the meantime, I know corporate-wise, the president has said, go to the Midwest, work with Chicago, see what they're doing, how they're doing it, go to Detroit, see how they're doing it, find a location. So, I mean, I'm flying all over, you know, and very truthfully, it had a tremendous impact upon my family. All of this from the time that I was hired by Levitt, and I was told create these training centers. I was spending 5-6 days away from home every single day. And I would spend a week in New Jersey,
What was your wife's name?
Bel Air.
What was your wife's name? What was your wife's name?
Rose.
Rose.
Yeah.
What was Rose's attitude?
We had already had some stress.
Because of the travel.
No, we had stress beforehand.
But
We had had-
that didn't help.
and
That
then
exacerbated.
We had stress when I was building myself. We had stress. It was just not a.
Was it jealousy,
It
or
wasn't
was it
good.
you're taking too much time away from the family?
We were too young.
I see.
Okay, I was still in school. I was 18 when I married her, and
She wanted to orchestrate your growth.
yeah, you know, I'm still going to. She's pregnant when I'm 19. She's 20. She's a year older than me, and Ray is born, and I'm still going to school, and I'm doing little pickup jobs here and there, and we had eloped. Nobody knew we were married. She stayed with her parents. I stayed with my parents. And by August, she was showing, so we had to declare it. And, you know, we went through that turmoil.
Who was that, Ray Jr.?
Ray Jr., yeah. And doesn't mean we didn't love him or, you know, but it was a tremendous, because we are living halfway on my parents because they gave us a place to live. And I'm doing little odd jobs. I'm not really making enough to support a wife and a kid. And
She wanted you to settle down. She wanted you to settle down and become come home at 5 o'clock.
It was a tough environment, but all of a sudden we overcame it. When I went complete your exposure, we will give you, and I will tell you right now, it was in 1965. It was $100,000 was worth like maybe $500,000 today. We'll give you this as a signing bonus,
Wow.
tax-free. Of course, we're going to pay your exposure, and we'll finish and I said, sign me up.
Yeah, beat me up.
I said,
And it was probably a good business decision for them too. I'm not sure if it was because they
it-
knew it was the right
it was
thing to do, or if it
because
was just bottom line.
Well, you have to
Within a
see
year-
what they actually, okay.
within a year,
There's gotta be
I'm
more
gonna
here,
let-
yeah.
Yes. there's-
within a year, I had established a manpower training. In fact, that was my title, Minority Manpower Training.
Director of my.
Director of Minority Manpower Training. And I had started a center in Willingboro, New Jersey, in Bel Air, Maryland, and in Catania, Puerto Rico. And I was big time. I took a plane here, I took a plane there, I drove here, I did that. And that's when Jack Janis, 2 weeks after he hired me, he gave me the credit card and he said, look, use it, but don't abuse it.
I'm still waiting for that.
And so, and I'm writing all this down, and you'll hear it again when I finish it. I'm just giving you the short version, or at least a version.
A version.
And
I don't know if it's short or not. But then they asked him to.
No, wait, I can't get to that yet.
He knows what's in the
Because
mind.
this is really, you know, here I am, and I say this for later because when I met with the president of Levitt and Sons, and he said we're going to make you after the training centers were very successful, and the first major happening after I was running around being a big shot at Levitt, my son Raymond, we had gotten into Colgate University. And Colgate University in 1969, the black students of Colgate University, here's a university, a very prestigious, as you know, a very prestigious university of 3,000 students,
You should have gone.
but less than 100 minority students.
How cute. That's My Little Pony on her.
I got this.
Yeah, I got this. Here, I got this.
And so they had the minority students. It was in the mid-60s, 1969 in fact. The minority students had seized a building. Well, my son is now a sophomore at Colgate, and I was at Willingboro at one of the training centers, that I just happened to be there, and I heard this over the radio about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and so I drove directly to Colgate. And when I got there were police all over, and I drove up. And
They had called the National Guard.
they had called the National Guard.
Very big deal, yeah.
And because in 1969 a lot of this was going on. And they stopped me at the gate, the main entrance. And I said, I'm Ray Chapman, I'm Director of Minority Development for Levitt and Sons. Oh, Levitt and Sons. And I said, yeah, well, I'm here to see if I can do anything to resolve this. And I'd like to see Dr. Wallen, who I knew was the president of the university. And so they took me to Wallen, and I met with him for no more than a half hour, and I said, look, I don't know what I can do, but I'd like to be able to meet with the students, see what I can do. And he said, well, if you can do anything, go ahead, please. And he said to the officer who was, I don't know if he was a sergeant or a lieutenant who had taken me there, but he was somebody in charge, and they took me to the building that the students had seized. And I knocked on the door, and somebody came to the door and cracked it. And I said, I'm Ray Chapman, I'm Ray Chapman's father. And I want to see if I can do something. And they said, well, we got to let us talk and see. So I waited outside about 5 minutes. They came back to the door and said, okay, come on in. So I met with them and blah, blah, blah. After about an hour and a half, and I had no program other than what was in my head. And I said, look,
They're small.
let's meet halfway. Maybe we can get the university to go halfway if you're willing to go halfway. Well, these students at this point, seeing all the policemen all around and whatnot,
They were scared.
they were scared. And they said, they finally said, okay, we can go with that program if we can get the university to do that. And I said, well, the first thing we have to do is leave the building, make sure that everything's intact, leave the building so they can't come back and say you destroyed the building.
How do you know how to say that? How did you know how to say that? Why did it seems to
Because
make
I
sense.
had been an administrator. That's my business. I had been an administrator. I know all these. Look,
So were you representing the establishment? You didn't
When I
want
say
nothing?
something, I usually don't say something
have
just because I
newspaper
want
and
to.
letters.
I say something based upon experience and training. But at any rate, they
In
agreed,
the building or no?
and they came out.
Are sitting because they.
And
I asked if your son was in the
The
building.
exposure,
He didn't know.
Oh, okay.
the
Ray hasn't exactly been.
Exposure?
The exposure and the
I get it.
excitement was over instantly. They were willing to walk out, and I went back to the president and I said, "Look, this is the deal I told him that you should be able to make, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." He said, "Okay." And
Did they do the deal?
president of the university telling me, "Okay."
Did they do the deal?
They gave the students left. 2 days later, I got a letter, which I can show to you. I don't.
Yes, there's backup. There's newspaper
There-
articles.
there's, I have all
there's a
kinds
lot
of documentation about
documentation.
this. And the president wrote me saying your efforts this weekend were phenomenal.
They did
and he
give
couldn't.
them. They did give
When I
them
went back
what
to
they
him and
asked.
told him, he was almost on his knees telling me, "Thank you, God, thank you for this," because the kids were walking out. And
Where did you get the power to do that?
And you just said, you've said all the time since you started here.
but it's a
He
good
said you've
question.
always been impressed with how his
But
negotiation
it's a,
power.
This
it's a good question because
Well, this is my attitude. I don't. My glass. In fact, this is what I told Ray because he asked me the other day, and my glass is always half full.
Ah.
It's never half empty.
Now I gave
There are
David
people
a
that think the
T-shirt
glass
that
is
says
half empty.
50% air and 50% water. It's 100% full.
My glass is. That's the way I've lived my life. But see, you got to remember, I was born in 1930, and I remember my mother used to make 2 pots of big pots. She had these old-fashioned big pots. And we had people coming to the door every morning for a cup of coffee and a slice of bread, maybe 2 slices of bread.
This is during the Depression?
Oh, yeah. This is during the early 30s.
Why her? Why is she doing that?
Because my father worked for the post office. He got a paycheck every
And
day.
his father had he had a university degree.
Yeah.
When 3% of the U.S. population, mostly whites, had
Yeah,
a
back when it was
university
really bad.
degree, and his father was one of the few. Doesn't mean that he was paid anything because he couldn't get a job, but he had a
I
college
couldn't
degree.
get a job other than with the government. He
But
couldn't
had
go to a bank and.
but he had to show
all
up. He had
the
to show up
big
for 7 years at the
opportunities
post
were
office
shut down
before
for him.
he could
But
get
at
a
least
job.
he was reason. But you see, that's the environment that I grew up in.
The Depression.
But beyond, it's
racial-
more than depression. I grew up in an environment of culture. My parents were
You
both
read
cultured,
my
and
final
so as a
exam
result,
about his
that's
singing.
what I was exposed
And
to.
I talked to Vera in Russian about how he learned to sing, and he sang with Harry Belafonte, and he sang in nightclubs, and she read that for my final degree. He had a very interesting
I've had a very interesting life.
I'm
I don't
very-
bring that up incidentally. I don't bring up that. That's an
You
incidental.
did that?
Huh?
You
Yes.
sang with Belafonte?
Yes, he
Yeah,
did.
as part of
Calypso.
his background. You know, do you remember
Give
the
her a
picture
little-
island?
give her a little
Do you remember the
calypso.
sign?
Ah, the
Do you remember
Give
Do you
her a
remember
little
island? Do you
calypso.
remember the picture island
Please.
in the
I
song?
can't remember this.
Okay,
I was in there.
sing a little bit.
This
Ray,
is my island
Ray.
in the
My
sun.
island in the sun. I don't remember the whole
If
song.
I-
But
if
give
would
her a
see
little,
that when
give
I
him
see
a
you.
little calypso.
No, you won't see me because I'm just singing in the choral group.
Where my people
Behind
have,
it.
where
But
my
I
people
was
have
there.
been. How did it go? Where my people have toiled since time begun.
Yeah, sing,
Yeah, I
sing
don't
something.
remember. I just don't remember. But I was in it.
Oh, you got to see the movie. You have to see the movie.
What?
You've seen the movie?
I haven't seen the movie, but I know it.
Vincent. No, let's see. Wait a minute.
But, you
James.
know, this is just
James,
part of my exposure. And
Dorothy Dandridge was in the movie.
when I have documents downstairs from the president of Colgate and from the went into the priesthood to become a priest, and he ended up just one level below bishop. I don't know the name of it, but we have a picture of him in here also. And my sister Lenore became a teacher, and she started teaching at PS 35, which is the school we all went to in Brooklyn. It became junior high school 35. My brother Ronnie got his PhD in music.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
Became a professional musician. And I have pictures of him in here also.
Who was the oldest?
Lenore.
Where were you in the pecking order? You the baby?
I'm the fifth. No, Ronnie was the baby.
Okay.
Six. He was the sixth. He
Uh-huh.
was born in 33. I was born in 30. Cynthia was born in 27. Bobby was born in 25. Billy was born in 24. And Lenore was born in 23. So my mother was virtually always pregnant.
How were you shaped by that?
Huh?
How was
I
it?
was in a family where you were taught to do the right thing. And my father was reasonably strict. I got spankings with a belt, not
Not ironing
the
cord.
belt.
Uh-huh.
And the last time he went to strike me with a belt, I put my hand up and caught his arm, and he couldn't move it. So he said, well, that's the end of that.
He said that.
No, he didn't say that.
He understood that.
He understood. I put my hand up, boom.
How old were you? How old were you?
I think I was 13 or 14,
Okay.
something like that. But look, I was the fighter of my class, of my age group. In fact, I had 2 fights that I remember very clearly where I knocked a young man out when I was 13 and one when I was 14. But
Where'd you hit him?
draw,
You hit him in the jaw. You knew how to knock a guy out?
knocked him out.
How'd you know how to do things like that?
Huh?
How did you know how to knock a person out?
How did I know what?
How to knock a person out? I mean, you could hit him in the temple, you could hit him in the jaw, you could just hit him in...
I used to be pretty physical.
Uh-huh.
That's the way I was. I was the most physical in my family.
Witness your tennis service, which was pretty close to 100 miles an hour. I can never forget your service, because I used to think I was a better tennis player than you. And of course, I had nowhere near your service.
Well, anyhow,
Yes.
let's see what this is.
Well, all right. That's your family, and
Yeah, well, I didn't tell you anything about my mother. Or my grandmother and my grandfather.
uh-huh.
My grandfather was born on the Cherokee Reservation. His father was on the Andrew Jackson Long March from Florida to
The Trail of Tears.
Trail of Tears.
Right.
And he escaped. He escaped. The story goes, naturally I wasn't there, so I can't verify, but I was always told that somewhere along the Trail of Tears, he escaped
Uh-huh.
and found his way back and ended up in the Cherokee Reservation and hid out and finally had his family there, and that's where my grandfather was born.
We have both the eastern and the western Cherokee rolls. And interestingly enough, we found the Levi's because he was a Macedonian Jew. We found the Levi's on the western roll. Levi is not a popular Cherokee name. There was only the two brothers, and we found them in the western rolls.
How does that play a role in all this?
Well, that was my grandfather, and they were Levi's. His father.
But you were telling me about Cherokee Indians and the Trail of Tears.
His father was evidently a black Jew, but his mother was Cherokee Indian. I have pictures in the book here.
Huh.
So I got all this stuff in.
How do you explain the origins of Jewish Jewishness in the Cherokee mix?
At that time had no look, man. A man goes after a woman, period.
Uh-huh.
And they don't know it. They weren't thinking about I'm a Jew, I'm a black, but you know, they were all in deep shit. I mean, they were slaves. This is my great-grandparents. And he was evidently 12 or 13 years old on his way with the Trail of Tears and escaped and went to the Cherokee Indians, which is where he had been living. So evidently his mother was there and that's where he was headed back to.
And how is the Jewish lineage intertwined with that?
I can't tell you exactly. I don't know, but I know that Levi is part of my heritage.
Ah. Yeah.
And like she was saying, it's in the records.
Mm-hmm.
I can only shoot from the hip when I talk to you. The first time I was astounded by your level of aggression was in a meeting at the law firm I was an associate with, called Ross, Hardy's, O'Keefe, Babcock, and Parsons.
I had come in to make a presentation to the big boss.
And
you were standing by the window. I remember it clearly.
And it shocked me. Richard Babcock was the managing partner, and he was responsible for me being at the firm, and he was a giant in land use planning in the United States. I mean, Mount Laurel is a land use decision that's germane to here in Maryland that changed how communities can plan their development. And the relationships of him to you is so fundamental to my understanding of power. He was the power guy, but you overpowered him intellectually with why the development choices you were making made more financial sense. He was a planner. You were a business developer. And you contradicted him. And it blew him away.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
And I remember reacting. You weren't afraid. My hair, my neck went up. I said, Jesus Christ, what did he do?
Who's this black guy?
Well, it's a funny thing. In the retrospective to that, I understood you both better as a result of that. And of course, the next episode is Ann Arbor. And Ann Arbor was a whole different face. Give me some background on how you got to Ann Arbor.
Well, now we're jumping all the way to Levitt and Sons. And I was the first black.
Well, what was the transition between Schlitz and Levitt?
There was no, well, at Schlitz, I had bought a house. I had been there about 8 years. I was now a platform supervisor. And this, if I go into the story of Levitt, I'm sorry, of Schlitz.
Mm-hmm.
All the women there were looking to deal with me because the whole place was white, and here's this reasonably attractive black man whom they were looking for to hire, and they hired me, and there must have been 15, 20 girls that, wanted to know who I was. And
right.
This, that, and the other.
Sure.
But on the platform, when I first went there, I would venture to say for the first 12, 18 months, there was so much jealousy by the white platform workers and the drivers. They used to, as soon as they saw me, they'd start limping along and yells at Mr. Boss Man, what can I do, Mr. Boss Man? And I had to go through that shit. But I figured it's better to get my paycheck than to listen to that.
Or to challenge that.
There was no challenge that I could put
right. All right.
But I was you started to express yourself about my childhood, and I was brought up in a family where we were taught not to be embarrassed by who we were.
Mm-hmm.
Always chin up.
Mm-hmm.
That was my father's expression. Chin up.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we went someplace. My mother used to take me on, well, I won't say used to, but I remember one time she had taken me just before Christmas shopping, and she told me she would always tell me, no matter where we were, but when we went into a department store, put your hands in your pockets. And I'm 5, 6, 7 years old. Put your hands in your pockets and don't take them out, because in a department store, they were looking for little black kids
To pick up things.
pick up things. you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And I just came from a family structure of that. My father was the head of the postal, the Black Postal Union in Brooklyn. And when he died, there must have been 300 cars or more in the trail to the funeral. We had police stopping the traffic on all the way to the Evergreen Cemetery in Brooklyn. But getting back to this other issue, at Schlitz, I got to Schlitz because I had purchased a house and in Queens, and there was a big lot across the street from where I had purchased the house. We had been told by the seller that they were going to start another development there after this development was finished. And lo and behold, about a year and a half after we were there, a big plant started going up. So I looked at Rose and she looked at me, and I said, well, I'm gonna go see if I can find a house in Long Island, Nassau County. I couldn't find a house, but I saw a builder where they were building and black people were buying. And I started going there every morning, and the general contractor came over to me and said, who are you? And I said, well, I'm just trying to watch what's going on. I'm thinking of buying a house, but I want to know how it's built. And I said, I'd love to be able to work part-time for you. And he said, well, I don't have any part-time workers. And I said, well, I'll work for free. I have a job, I'll work for free. And he said, well, I'll think about it, come back tomorrow. And I went back to work, and I asked him if I could go on the second shift, because we changed shifts from AM to PM shifts. And I was granted that, but I had to wait till the end of the month. And I went back the next day to the guy, his name was Smith. And he said, what do you really want? And I said, I want to learn how to build a house. And he said, okay, but I'm not paying you anything. And I said, I told you I'll work for free. And he said, well, start on Monday, come in and we'll see how we'll work this out. So I came in on the next Monday, and his operation started at 7 a.m. and ended at 4, but I had to leave by 3 because I had the second shift. I had to be to work by 5. And so I started working for him first, just carrying lumber, learning this, that, and the other. And to make a long story short, I started, and I worked almost a year for nothing, every day on different jobs, learning the business, how to contract, how to read blueprints, how to negotiate with contractors, et cetera, and I ended up buying a piece of land and building my first house, 134 Virginia Avenue in Hempstead. And I had enough courage to put a sign in the window, just want to read it right. Builder 434, that was my number. I can't remember the whole number. But anyhow, I put the sign in the window, and the people in the meantime around the community have noted that I was the builder, and here's a black guy that's building a house. So here again, to make a long story short, I ended up getting about 11 contracts by the end of the year, and I started building houses. And
Wait a minute.
I left Schlitz.
Wait a minute. You were building your own house.
Yeah,
You were learning how to build a house by working for free.
yeah. But I did that for almost a year.
But how
And
did
then I bought a piece of land.
you bought a house? You were building your own house.
And I was building my own house.
How did
put
you-
a sign in the window? Custom builder. That's what it was. Custom builder 434, and
Wow.
I can't remember the rest of the number.
Wow.
And I started getting
Wow.
calls.
How did you know how to do that?
Uh,
What was that leap? That's a hell of a leap.
Well, anyhow, I ended up with about 11 customers by the end of the year, and I was building houses. And at that time, I would build a house. Most of the houses I built, well, I built and sold for under $100,000.
I want to spend a little time here because this was incrementally, that was a large leap that you made. Not only did you determine that this was
I made
something,
large leaps all my life.
well, yeah, but give me the background. What was in your thinking? I mean, when you
It was-
when you offered to
for
work
me-
for free,
for
for
me-
example, did you have that in mind to sell?
No, I was negotiating for what I wanted to do.
And so you were learning,
Yeah,
learning how to do it.
I didn't go to learn to be an architect or to be a carpenter or a plumber or anything. But
You learned the various roles in putting a house together.
I was interested in how do you do this? Who do you schedule? How do you do the
Sequencing.
whole process? And that's what this guy taught me.
Had you done anything like this before? Had you been a part of a?
A construction operation?
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I just wanted, I told you, we had bought a house, and the lot across from us was the builder that sold us the house told us that he was going to build houses the next spring on this vacant lot. Well, that was a lie. And about June or July of the next year, when we were looking for construction to have begun, in fact, we were asking we were asking neighbors, when's he going to start building? All of a sudden, these big trucks started coming in, and they built this factory. It was like a warehouse factory on this lot, and I had decided, my wife and I decided, that wasn't Gail, that was Rose, that we have to get out of here. So that's when I went to Long Island and started looking around, and I found this construction going on, and I stood outside every morning for about 3 or 4 weeks, and finally the guy came down and asked me, "What do you want? You're here every day." And I said, "I want to learn how to build a house." And his first answer was, "You don't have to learn, I'll build it for you." And I said, "No, I want to learn how to build." And
Where did that come from?
hmm?
Where did that come from? That wanting
It's
to know.
just part of my instinct, part of my life.
Was it something? Is there an analogy in your earlier part of your life where you did something similar, just out of?
I just saw, yeah, I started, the largest store in Brooklyn at that time, grocery store chain, was Bohack and Company.
Uh-huh.
And I started working for them when I was 11, delivering orders.
Uh-huh.
And you know, most people would give me a dime for delivery, but a dime in those days was, we're talking about 1941, you know. And some people would give me a quarter, but you know, I'd end up with $2 or $3 by the end of the week, and then I bought a cheap wagon. It was a regular wagon that a woman wanted to get rid of, and I said, "I'll give you $1 for the wagon," and she said, "Here's the wagon," and I gave her 4 quarters. And I then hired another little friend of mine to deliver orders because I was getting more business than I could handle. And I gave him the wagon to deliver orders, and I kept delivering orders, and we were both delivering orders. And Saturday was our big day. We never could get them. I mean, we worked until 7, 8 o'clock at night trying to deliver orders on Saturday, and we'd end up making $5 or $6 on a Saturday. So, I mean, that's been part of my nature. I have always been relatively aggressive. And
So this is a video that's shooting right now, so that you could tell me after this is all over. Yeah, she's tired, and we could cut it off right here.
Thank you.
And no good. Got it. I never like taking pose. I never like taking pose pictures anyway.
no, black. What do we have? What kind of
Black cherry
ice
ice
cream?
cream.
Black cherry.
I
Black
like just doing it.
You know what we had just before this?
No, have no idea. Oh no, we don't buy hot.
No, I'm sorry.
That's what we don't need.
It's not that we wouldn't buy it, it's that we
No, we
don't
don't.
have.
Watch out, Grandpa.
All right, I'm watching.
Black cherry bright.
I'm watching out.
I don't know what it is.
Bright.
No, I was so rich, but I had that.
See, that's what I like.
It's right, you're right, it's right, it's real black cherry.
Flyers black cherry. Would you care for some?
A little tiny bit.
Get the scoop. You want black cherry?
Absolutely. No question about it.
Oh man,
What?
you got to take a picture of the guy who's here. I don't know if I can see myself. Point it at me. Look at me. No, point it. Look at. No, you pointed it at yourself. Look at me and point it at me. Look at me in the picture. This is Robert.
This is
And-
Robert's.
Yes. And that's David and Daniel over there. They're artists in residence.
Now, what button does she press?
This is a video, right?
This is a video.
And it's
So
already
I've been
going.
doing this for the last 10
It's
minutes.
already going, right?
It is going. And get him talking. Now, let me just show you the difference. Get him in the picture.
Wait a minute, you can't move it that fast.
Now is the time for all
all
the
good
men
men
to come to the aid of their
country.
women.
Look again.
You have to, Bob. You have
What
to
is the most important word you know? What's the most important word you know?
Life.
Daniel, what's the most important word you know? One word.
Okay, that shows.
That's the word. That's the word. Silence.
Family.
Family. David,
This is a great.
most important word you know.
Wait, but you have to move slowly.
I don't know.
All right. They are aspects of the same. Silence and I don't know. So it's undefined, which means you're open to anything. And you make the choices. And you make your own choices.
Grandpa,
That's the best of all worlds.
I asked your grandson, what's the most important word?
What did he say?
Playing cars. He didn't have a problem.
He's in the present.
He did
He's
not
in the
have
present.
a
He's with it.
problem. He did not have a problem.
You said present.
He's in the present. And this is special. Because I'll have a record of this. I like it.
Good.
And isn't it different? Isn't it somehow different that they don't have to deal with what you had to deal with?
Oh, okay, but no, that's evolution.
That's
I
evolution.
yes, I guarantee you.
Nobody's going to pin them up against the wall.
Our great-grandparents didn't have to deal with what their great-grandparents dealt with.
They are accorded so much respect just by their accomplishments. They're expected to be smart. They're expected to be intelligent.
They better all bust their butts after all I've been through.
Unlike some of the challenge you had, they didn't want you to be intelligent. If you were too intelligent, we got the same responsibility you had at school. Oh no, you shouldn't be writing the capital. You should be coloring the math. That's why you started the school. It's ironic that is very much similar to our experience.
Look, years ago, I don't even want to go into what life was like for me, and it was worse for my parents, as it was worse for your parents.
Yes.
You know,
But we had a loving family.
But that was yesterday, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
That's yesterday.
Except understand.
We don't even have to understand it.
Hey, Daniel, do you have pictures of the Dan?
You never stop.
Do you have pictures of the monster?
Yeah, but
Do you have pictures of the monster?
This one?
Are you still taking pictures?
If you don't, you do now. You do now.
I have pictures of it.
Yeah, in fact, I can send
Check
you.
David's Facebook. It should probably still be on
I
there.
can send you, when I have my computer up, I can send
Send
you
you-
pictures of the conference where you can
Oh,
get an
really?
idea about
Get
what
into
the
your
whole
Facebook
thing,
and bring
and
it up.
all these people going up and down the elevator looking
That's
just
part
like
of my brother's
that.
costume.
That's good.